My name is Patrick Kamau Kamure. You are a lecturer in public finance and taxation. Welcome to today's lesson where we learn more about the taxation of the business income, and which we started some time back in few lessons, past lessons, where we say that we are supposed to look at the taxation of the business income, and we had 3 businesses we are supposed to look at: the sole proprietorship, partnership, and the limited company. In our previous lessons, we have covered the sole proprietorship and the partnership. So what is remaining is the taxation of the limited company, and it is the one that I want us to look at how it is usually taxed. So this is what you need to know about the limited company. That limited company is considered to be a separate legal entity from the owners, and therefore taxed on its own income at corporate tax rate. That is the first thing that you need to know, that a company is considered to be separate from the people who forms it. So when you're taxing a company, you tax the company itself. You don't tax the owners. Unlike the case of sole proprietorship, which you tax the owner, the partnership where you tax the partners, here you tax the company itself. So the following points are considered when you are taxing the company. So points considered in taxation of a limited company. There are only 2 points that you need to consider when you are taxing a company. One of them is this. One, or A, determination of the taxable income of taxable incomes. So this is determined using either number 1, gross profit method, number 2, net profit method. So what we are saying here is that when you're determining the taxable income of a company, you just determine it in the same way as any other business, the way we have been using, either gross profit method, if you have not been given net accounting profit. If you have been given the net accounting profit, then you use the net profit method. It's the same thing. Point B to consider is that taxable income of company is taxed at the following tax rate. 1, resident company, 30%. Number 2, non-resident company, 37.5%. But note, so what we are saying is that when you determine the taxable income of a company, if it is a resident company, you tax it at 30% to get the tax to be paid. If it is a non-resident company, that's 7.5%, then you get the tax to be paid. But note, from 1st of January 2024, non-residents will be taxed at 30%. Yeah. So there was a change of the law on 1st of July 2023, which stated that come January 2024, the non-resident corporate tax rate will be reduced from that 7.5% to 30%. So it's good to know when you are taxing a company, which year is it rating to? Any year before 2024, that is 7.5% for non-resident only. And now beyond 2024 or 24 and beyond, then it's supposed to be, that is 30%. That is all that you need to know. Otherwise, everything else that we have been talking about taxation of a business, in terms of the method, in terms of the taxable operating income, non-taxable operating income, allowable expenses, and non-allowable expenses remain the same. So now we look at a question. This is what the question says. Zahari Processors Limited presented the following statement of profit or loss for the year ended 31st December 2022. We have the turnover, cost of sales, gross profit, other incomes, provision for foreign exchange gain, gain on sale of motor vehicle, release of liability, refund of excess duty, investment income gross, total income, less expenses, purchase of trademark, a design of company website, director's fee, donation to charitable institutions, depreciation expense, marketing expense, management and professional fees, general expenses, legal costs, loan repayment, allowance for doubtful debts, impairment loss of property, a net profit for the year. Additional information number 1. On 1st April 2022, the company acquired the following assets: factory building, warehouse, processing machinery, rolling 4 tons, drainage system, saloon car. Number 2, management and professional fee comprised development of strategic plan, tax consultancy fee, audit fee, environmental assessment fee. General expenses include installation of neon sign, car grant to a director, installation of processing machine, staff Christmas party, retrenchment costs. Number 4, legal fee comprised defense against claim for breach of trade agreement, renewal of Kenya Association of Manufacturers membership fee, negotiating a bank loan, a preparation of employment contract, drafting lease agreement 60 years. Number 5, release of liability was in respect of a loan obtained from one director who decided to write off the loan as it was due for over 4 years. So we are required compute the total taxable profit or loss for Zahari Processors Limited for the year ending that 1st December 2022. So we want to get the taxable income. First thing that we need to ask ourselves, which method are we supposed to use? It's obvious that for this question we are supposed to use the net profit method because we have been given the income statement with net profit, but the key we have been given the net profit, or if we are given the net loss or net income, is the same. So we'll start. So we'll start with the net profit that has been provided to us. Which we have, note that the items are being given shillings 1,000. So we have 527, 614. And then we add non-allowable expenses. In P&L and taxable operating income, not in P&L. So, as we have been doing any question that we use the net profit method, we just need to go to the P&L, look for the non-allowable expenses there. The first expense in the P&L, purchase of trademark. Trademark is not allowable. The first expense in the P&L is trademark, which is not allowable. So we add it. Then we continue. The next one is design of company website. Website is a fixed asset which we should claim capital allowance later. It's not allowable. So we add it, which we have 12,400. The other one is director's fee. Director's fee is allowed if you look at what we had said among the allowable expense initially. Donation to charity, that's allowable, we said. Depreciation, no, that is not allowable. Depreciation, which we have that 240. After the depreciation, marketing expense. Marketing is allowable. A management and professional fee, that is also allowable, we said, because it's for the business. General expenses, they are allowable because they are for business. Legal costs, unless it is stated what it is, it's allowed, which we had already looked at the non-allowable legal cost. Loan repayment, no, that isn't allowable. Loan repayment, which you have 2,600. Then the next one is allowance for doubtful debt. Allowance for doubtful debt is not allowed. It's a provision. Unless they say specific allowance, it's not allowable. Which we have 2,250. The next one is impairment loss of property. We don't allow impairment loss. We don't. So impairment loss, which we have 1,500. Seems we are done with non-allowable expense in P&L, but we need to go to the additional information, check if there is further analysis of expense in the P&L, and if there is a part that is not allowable. At the same time, in the additional information, we look for taxable operating income not in P&L. An income that is taxable and is operating but has not been included in the P&L up here. So let's see. Additional information number 1. On 1st April 2022, the company acquired the following assets. Now, those are fixed assets. First, they are not in the P&L. If you go to the P&L expenses, they are not there. So ignore. Number 2, management and professional fee comprised. Now, that is in the P&L. We have to look for non-allowables. Higher. Development of strategic plan. That is an allowable expense because when you plan for your business, it's income generating, it's allowable. How about tax consultancy fee? No, anything to do with tax we don't allow. Tax consultancy fee, which you have 208. The next one is audit fee. Audit fee is allowed. Environmental assessment fee, that is supposed to be an allowable expense. Why? It is not income generating. We said any expense that is not income generating is not allowable. So environmental assessment, which we have 256. After that, we go to number 3. General expenses include. Now, general expenses is in the P&L. When you go to the P&L, you find the general expenses there. They include installation of neon sign. Neon sign installation is a fixed asset. Expense incurred before you start using the neon sign, the fixed asset. Those we don't allow. So, we disallow. Which we have 820. The other one is car grant to a director, also not allowed because a grant to a director is a private, for private use. We don't allow. Which we have 2,800. The other one is installation of processing machine. We don't allow installation of the process. They are fixed asset. Expense incurred before you start using fixed asset. We don't allow them. Which we have 1,560. The other one is staff Christmas party. That is now allowed because we said expense for the welfare of workers, they are allowable. That's for welfare. The other one is retrenchment cost. We don't allow retrenchment cost. Expense that is not income generating, we don't allow. Retrenchment costs. Which we have 580. After that, we go to additional information number 4. Legal fee complies. Now, legal fee is an expense and it is in the P&L. We look for the non-allowable in it. Defense against breach of trade agreement. We don't allow breach of trade agreement. Breach of contract. We don't. Which we have 1450. How about renewal of Kenya Association of Manufacturers membership fee? That's a trade association. We said anything paid to a trade association is allowable. Negotiating a bank loan, no. Bank loan cost, not allowed. Which we have 1168. 68. The other one is preparation of employment contract. That is allowed. We said so. Drafting at least 60 years. We said up to 99 years this is allowed. So we are done with legal. Number 5. Release of liability was in respect of a loan obtained from one director who decided to write off the loan as it was due over 4 years. Here we said, that's an income. The income you are interested with is the one not in P&L for now. For that one, if you go to the P&L, you'll find it as one of the income in the P&L, in the income statement. So we ignore because we want the one not in P&L. Now that we are done with the addition, we come to the deduction now, less. And we list 3 items as we said. 1, non-taxable operating income. In P&L, that is 1, or investment incomes, in P&L, and allowable expenses, not in P&L. So what we do, or we said, we start with the first 2 items, non-taxable operating income in P&L and all the investment income in the P&L. So let's go to the P&L, look for an income that is there that is not taxable or an investment income that is there. Like the first income we have is the turnover. Turnover is a taxable income. It's a taxable. After that, there is, because it involves sales, it's sales actually or revenue, what they do. Cost of sales, that's not an income. Right now we are interested with the incomes. Non-taxable investment. Gross profit is as a result of turnover and cost of sales. Other incomes which we have, provision for foreign exchange gain. Provision is actually unrealized. If it was just in foreign exchange gain or realized, then that's taxable. But provision is unrealized. So it's not taxable. We remove provision for foreign exchange gain, which we have 84,000. We deduct. The other one is gain on sale of motor vehicle. Income from selling fixed assets we don't tax. Deduct. So gain on sale of motor vehicle. Fixed assets income we don't tax. 28,000. The next one is release of liability. What was the liability about? We were told in additional information number 5, release of liability was in respect of a loan obtained from one director who decided to write off the loan as it was due over 4 years. But that is not an operating income. So we remove. It's not an operating, it's not even an income, an operating income. So release of liability. Release of liability which you have, that's 2,000. Next, refund of excess duty. excess duty is not an income. You know, you are just being refunded the tax you had paid. It's not an income. So remove. Which we have 16,000. Last three, investment income. Here we are saying that all investment income in P&L we remove. So we remove that. Investment incomes. So investment income, which we have 24,000, we deduct. For now, up to this point, we are done. So what remains is for us to look for allowable expense not in P&L. An expense that is allowable, but if you go to the P&L, it isn't there. If it is not in the P&L, where is it? It must be in the additional information. So let's go to the additional information and check. Number one, on 1st April 2022, the company acquired the following assets. Well, those assets were not in the P&L, but themselves they are not allowable. What we allow in them is capital allowance or investment allowance. And there is nowhere we are told that this is the capital allowance to use. If you are not told, we said you compute yourself. So we start with, the first one is factory building. Factory building you claim at the rate of 50%. So capital allowance on factory building. In short, I'll write FB, factory building, which we said this being used for manufacturing, factory building, it is 50% of 28,800. That will be 14,400, the capital allowance. And we say that whenever you are claiming 50%, you don't consider the time. You claim for the full year, even if it is 1 day. The other rates, 25, 10, are the one that you consider time. Warehouse, that's supposed to be capital allowance at the rate of 10%. So we'll have here warehouse, which is supposed to be 10%. And then this we said we consider time from 1st April. Those are 9 months to the end of the year. So times 9 over 12 of 2,800. That we will compute in a while. The other one is processing machine. Processing machine is supposed to be done at the rate of 50%. That's what we said. So we come here and say processing machine. So this is supposed to be 50% without considering time of 16,000. But we said all the expenses that are incurred before you start using a fixed asset, we add them together and then we claim capital allowance together. What I'm saying is this. We had an installation of processing machine here, which we disallowed because it was relating to a fixed asset. Now, because they are the same, now we add it here, which we have 1,560. And then we'll claim capital allowance on the total. All the cost incurred before using, like this installation was before use. Lorry, that is supposed to be 25%. This we consider time, 9 over 12 of 3,500. The other one is drainage system. If you look at the capital allowance, we say that should be 50%. So we'll have drainage system, which is supposed to be 50% of 2,600. For the saloon car, we said it's 25%, and we consider time. However, we had said if a saloon car or sport utility vehicle exceed 3 million, we only give capital allowance to 3 million. This one is already exceeding, it's 4,840,000, so we only give 3 million. So we have saloon car. So 25% times 9 over 12 times 3. Now, those being the only fixed asset in number one, we do the computation now. The first one is, we had already done, is 50% of 28,800. The warehouse now, 10. And then 10% times 9 divided by 12. And then times 2,800. That gives us 210. The other one, we add the 16,000. We add 1,560. And then we take 50%. 8780. The other one is 25% times 9 divided by 12 and then times 3500, giving us 656.25. I want us to round off to whole numbers, so we just have 656. Then the other one is 50% of 2600, that will be 1300. 25% of 9 over 12 times 3, which gives us 562.5. So we round off to whole numbers, 563. Yeah. So we have been looking for allowable expenses not in P&L, and we were in number 1. We found fixed assets that were not in the P&L, and so we claim capital allowance. Let's check for any other fixed allowable expense not in P&L. Number 2, management fee comprised of the following. Now all those ones are in the P&L, including the audit fee, development of strategic plan. All those were in the P&L through management and professional fee. We said if the heading is in the P&L, ignore. 3 general expenses is in the P&L. Legal fee are in the P&L. Number 5 is not an expense, it's an income. So what did we say? We said if you have not been given capital allowance, we now come back here. Of the expenses that we have added back, if there is a fixed asset, claim capital allowance. We disallow the fixed asset, you claim capital allowance. So in this case, we had a website. Trademark does not qualify for capital allowance. It's an intangible asset. Website is supposed to be at the rate of 25%. And then the other one that we had was neon sign installation. And then the one installation of machine which we had considered there. And there was no any other. So we'll come here, website, which we have 25%. Now this we haven't been told when it was acquired or utilized from. So we take 25% of 12,400. 12,400. For the neon sign, that is supposed to be 10%. Neon sign, 10%. We haven't been told when it was started being used in the business. And here we had 820. So this will be 82. Now we do the website, which is supposed to be 25% of 12,400, which give us that 100. Yeah, that 100. Now with nothing else to deduct, because we are done with incomes in the P&L, allowable expense not in P&L, we now get net taxable operating income. So we'll start from the net profit we add, and then we minus those ones. So 527,614, and then 527,614 plus 48,800 plus 12,400 plus that 240 plus 2,600 plus 2,250 plus 1,500 plus 208 plus 256 plus 820 plus 2,800 plus 1,560 plus 580 plus 1,450 plus 1,168. Then this figure we minus the 84,000 minus 28,000, 28,000 minus 32,000 minus 16,000 minus 24,000 minus 14,400 minus 210 minus 8780 minus 656. We minus 1,300. We minus 563, and we minus 100, and then we minus 82. That gives us 394, 155. Now, we said this, because this is a company and you tax the company itself, once you get the operating income, you add taxable investment income. Investment income. We add the taxable investment income. In this question, incomes are in the income statement. There was only one investment income, the last one, a general investment income. We said if it is not indicated where an investment income is coming from, tax it. So this one is not indicated, so tax. So add investment income, which here we have been told it's 24,000. And since there isn't any other, this will give us the total taxable incomes. So we take the operating plus the investment incomes, which 394, 155, and then we add 24,000. That gives us 418, 155. Now, if you go to the required, we were supposed to get what? Compute the total taxable profit or loss of Zahari Processors Limited, and it ends there. There's no other question. But sometimes you can be asked to get the tax. Unless it is indicated it's an unresident or a foreign company, we said you tax at the rate of 30% because it's considered to be a resident. So tax, if tax was required, that is, if it was a requirement that we get the tax, so tax will be 30% of 418, 155,000. Now we add the zeros, the one that we had quoted here, because now we are outside of these zeros we had quoted. So we'll get 30% of 418, 155,000, which gives us 125, 446, 500. And so if you are asked to get the tax, that's what you do. So the taxation of the business ends there. And which case, in case you are told to use the gross profit method, or in case you have not been given the net accounting profit and use the gross profit method, you just have the same. You just start with the sales, cost of sales, and other income, less allowable expense. Then at the end of it, you'll get the taxable operating income, add the investment, and then if you are asked to get the tax, you do the same. So it's all about whether you have been given the net accounting profit or not, then you know the method that you're supposed to use. So for now, we are going to stop there until our next lesson. So kindly below this video, there is some assignment question, attempt, and then you see if you can be able to do it the way we have done it. Thank you very much.
Welcome, learner, to our subject of today, research, consultancy, and advisory. We are looking at underlying theories, models of research, consultancy, and advisory. And our focus today in the lesson will be on social systems theory, which falls under selected research and consultancy theories. The social systems theory has been used extensively in social sciences, and the social systems theory is also called or referred to as systems theory. This social systems theory has its conceptual origins in social systems theory and can be traced to the 19th century to the work of a philosopher Herbert Spencer and Emil Durkheim. They extensively looked at social systems, and the social systems theory is the study of society as a complex arrangement of elements, including individuals and their beliefs, as they relate to the whole. That is very critical as it relates to the whole. And in terms of the whole, this refers to a country, an organization, an entity, or a corporation. And specifically when it comes to social systems, when it comes to a company, then the company as a whole is an entity or an organization. And inside that particular organization, according to the social systems theory, there are subsystems within that particular organization. And those systems, the way they relate to each other, they contribute to defining what the whole system is. And when it comes to a country, then within a country, there are systems within a country. Within a country, there are organizations, and those organizations, under the beliefs of those people within that particular country, individuals, they define what that particular country is. In the social systems theory, we are going to look at the basic assumptions of social systems theory, basic assumptions of the social systems theory. And there are 4 assumptions that underlie or underpin this theory. And the first basic assumption is that there is an underlying general order in the world. So 1, there is an underlying general order in the world. So this system assumes or makes an assumption that generally there is the aspect of order when it comes to things, the way things are done in the world. And that's the first basic assumption of the social systems theory. The second assumption of the second basic assumption of the social systems theory is that social ordering is a consistent and dynamic process. Social ordering is a consistent and dynamic process. What this implies is that when it comes to any society, whichever way the society is structured, or whichever way an organization is structured, there will be dynamics in terms of how order is maintained and sustained in terms of that particular working organization or that particular entity. Then the third aspect is that, the third assumption is that all human social behavior is purposive. All human social behavior is purposive. What this underlying assumption indicates is that any kind of behavior that is exhibited by an individual in a company, in a country, or in any system, whether it is a church, mention any group, that particular social behavior that is exhibited, it's purposive, or it has a purpose. So that is the third basic underlying principle underpinning the social systems theory. Then the fourth one is that all forms of social organizations display self-responsibility. All forms of behavior reflect a form of responsibility or responsiveness. So all forms of behavior reflect a form of responsibility or a response. They display a response in terms of the characteristics. So these are the four assumptions which underlie the social systems theory. So the proponents of this theory argue that there is an underlying general order in the world. Then two, social ordering is a consistent and dynamic process. They also argue or assume or underpin that all human social behavior has a purpose, and they argue that all forms of behavior reflect a form of responsibility or a form of response. Then when it comes to the social systems theory, there are certain components of the social system theory. Components of social systems theory. There are components or the characteristics of social system theory which define what the social system is. And these components are: you have an input within the system, you have a process in the system, you have output in the system, and there is a feedback loop from output to input, and then there is the environment within which that particular system operates. So the components of a social system can be seen in a display figure. It can be displayed such that you have a figure or a diagram that indicates the components of a social system. And within this particular social system, we have indicated that this social system will have input, or you can call them inputs. And these inputs as they come, you will have the inputs directed towards the process that they have to be processed within an organizational setting. So you have the processes, you can call them processes, and from processes, then you have outputs. So any system will have inputs, will have processes, and then there will be a loop. There will be a loop from outputs to inputs, which provides feedback. So from outputs, then you have feedback. So this is feedback. And when it comes to the feedback, then within that particular system, then you have the environment. And within that particular environment, there will be stakeholders. Within the environment, there will be stakeholders. And these particular stakeholders could, for example, be consumers. You have suppliers. You have, for example, government, among other members. So you have inputs, you have processes, you have outputs, you have feedback, and then you have environment within which the social system operates. And this is typical for any organization. If you are taking a company, for example, an organization that receives raw materials, these raw materials will be processed through processes. For example, if it is tea, for instance, it will be, for example, brought in as raw materials. It will undergo a process from the green leaf, maybe raw leaf and so on, to semi-processed outputs, which can now be dried. For example, tea leaves may be packaged. Then these ones are now, feedback is given to the output. And then when you have consumers, so from the outputs, the consumers will be there. Suppliers will also be interacting with this particular system and providing the inputs, like now you need energy, you need regulation by government, you need the price controls and so on. So these would form now the components of a social system that is continuously interacting with its environment to be able to provide goods, to be able to provide services within that particular working context. So the components or characteristics, components or characteristics of a system, of a social system, will include the things that will define a social system. Will include, we have indicated, one, you have the inputs. Two, you have processes. Three, you have outputs. Four, you have feedback. And then five, you have controls. Now, these controls can be brought in by, say, government. You could be an organization and you are operating maybe in the service sector, maybe tourism sector, or manufacturing sector. So for you to be able to operate, there will be controls that are put in place by a government. There will be codes of ethics that are put in place by suppliers. You will also have consumers. Consumers will also have the bodies that are representing them in relation to the benefits or maybe the rights of consumers. So the system is in constant interaction with its environment. So when the feedback is provided that what has been produced is being accepted by consumers, then that particular system will basically continue working effectively. If the feedback is negative, then whenever the inputs are coming from, there'll be controls implemented to ensure that if consumers are complaining, if suppliers, for example, are not being paid, then it is important that that arrangement is made to ensure corrective measures are taken into consideration. Otherwise, if there are products being produced by a given company or by a given organization, if they don't meet the expectations of the environment, then those kind of products may not be readily acceptable in the market. So those are the components or the characteristics of a social system as envisaged in the social systems theory. And we have indicated you have inputs, you have processes, you have outputs, you have feedback, and then you have controls. So one may ask, so what are the applications of the social systems theory? Applications of the social systems theory. How can the social systems theory be applied, or of what use is the social system? Now, the way the social system has been put forward by its proponents, a social system looks at a system as being more important than the subsystems. So one, the whole is more important than the subsystem. So when it comes to operations within a given work environment or organization, it is important to note that there will be different sections within a particular system or components. But when it comes to the issue of preferences in terms of choices, what should be done, then the outputs or the processes or the components have to ensure, or the players within the system have to ensure that the players as subsystems are not more important than the whole system. So the whole system and its requirements take precedent when it comes to structuring of events and activities. It is also important to note that those making decisions should be aware that the environment within which a system operates is important. So the environment influences how organizations operate. Environments influence how organizations operate. Let us take an example. You have an organization that is in the manufacturing sector. Now, government and government agencies, for example, you have NEMA. If an organization is manufacturing, it is expected to comply to the regulations that have been set by government and its agencies like NEMA. So if that organization does not comply, then that organization may suffer consequences. So the social systems theory try to explain that as organizations operate, those organizations must be sensitive to the environment. The same thing with Kenya Bureau of Standards. So if an organization is operating, then it has to meet the quality mark. If that organization does not meet the quality mark, then that particular organization may suffer in the market, and customers may not be very confident in, or consumers may not be very confident in patronizing the products of that particular organization. So that's another area where the social systems theory underpins or informs decisions within the area of organization operations. Then it's also important to note that another area of application of the social systems theory is that organizational structures should be designed to be adaptive to changes. Organizational structures should be designed to be adaptive to changes. What is noted widely is that change is the only thing that is permanent. So as organizational structures are designed, it is important to be informed by the social systems theory that change will come. So organizational structures should be designed in terms of how they relate to different functions, with that particular understanding that when change comes, this particular structure is flexible enough, can be adaptive to the changes that are anticipated within a given working context. Then it's also important to note that another area or use of the social systems theory is that subsystems have to be aligned to support the main systems. Subsystems should be aligned. Subsystems should be aligned to support the main system. So if you have a country, we have given an example that an organization or a country could be now the main system or the main organization. So the way subsystems are designed, they should be aligned to support the main system so that the main system can be able to function and function effectively. Then it is important to ensure that the principles and concepts should be designed to be broadly applicable. Principles and concepts should be designed to be broadly applicable. So when it comes to organizational settings, if concepts or systems are designed within an organization, those systems should not be designed for just specific functions. Those systems and underlying principles within systems should be designed in such a way that, because systems relate to each other, principles and concepts should be designed to ensure that they can be broadly applicable within the context of operational organizations and so on. Then it is also important to ensure that when it comes to the social systems theory, every system is bounded by space and time. Every system is bounded by space and time. Every system is bounded by space and time. So at any one given event, if the system is supposed to receive, for example, input, then that particular system that is receiving input, that input is expected to come at a particular setting. And that bounding in terms of time may affect the operations of another system. So the issue of space and time should ensure that the way the systems are working, they are properly synchronized, so that if you have the receiving point, you have the processing point, you have the output point, you have the feedback time, then those systems must be interconnected and interrelated to work effectively, as the case might be. Then it is also important that to note that the social system is consistent with the systems thinking approach. The social systems thinking, social systems theory is consistent with systems thinking. Social systems theory is consistent with the systems thinking. So basically what this implies is that in any given organization, it is important that though you have subsystems, you have sections in a department, you have processes like input, processing, outputs, and others. It is important to ensure that for effectiveness of performance of organizations, there must be one approach for the whole organization. So the whole organization must look at issues holistically. Whatever decision that is being taken, the decision has to be taken in the context of the entire organization. So these are some of the areas where application of social systems theory can be able to be applied in management and other operational areas. So in our lesson today, Lana, we have looked at social systems theory as one of the selected theories in the area of research and consultancy. And we have seen that social systems theory is also called systems theory, and it was conceptualized in the 19th century, and it is attributed to philosopher Herbert Spencer and Emil Durkheim, who was a sociologist. And we have seen that the systems theory is the study of society, and it looks at society as a complex arrangement of elements that include individuals and their beliefs, what they believe in, as they relate to the whole. And we have seen that when it comes to the whole, it could be a corporation, it could be a country, it could be a county government, for example, it could be an entity like a church or maybe any other social organization. And we have gone ahead to see some of the basic assumptions of social systems theory, where we have looked at the 4 assumptions. And the assumption 1 is that there is an underlying general order in the world. That is an assumption of the social systems theory. Number 2, social ordering is a consistent and dynamic process. To put things in order, it has to be done consistently, and the process is dynamic. Number 3, the third basic assumption is that all social behavior is purposive. Any behavior that is in an organization, in a work environment, in a group, it has a purpose. Then 4, all forms of behavior reflect a form of responsibility or responsiveness. Then we have gone ahead and looked at the components of social systems theory, where we have looked at inputs, processes, outputs, and we have looked at the feedback loop. And we have also discussed that the social systems theory operates within an environment, and this environment may include stakeholders like consumers, suppliers, government and government agencies. And the components and characteristics of a social system, we have mentioned them as inputs, processes, outputs, feedback, and controls within the system. And then we have also gone ahead, Lana, and looked at the applications of the social systems theory, where we have looked at 7 of the applications where the social system theory can be applied. And we have indicated the number 1, that the social system looks at the whole, indicates that the whole is more important than the subsystem. There will be subsystems within an organization, but when it comes to the degree of importance, then the whole should be looked at as more important and than the subsystem. Then number two, environments influence how organizations operate, and we gave an illustration and indicated an organization in the operating in the production setting should be aware that the environment, for example, government and government agencies or suppliers or consumers may have an impact on what the organization does. Hence, it is important that organizations become sensitive to their environments. Then thirdly, organizational structures should be designed to be adaptive to change. So this social systems theory can inform those designing organizational structures so that the organizational structures are designed with an element of flexibility so that they are flexible and they can be able to operate and adapt to changes. Then four, subsystems should be aligned to support the main systems. So the subsystem exists for the purpose of supporting the main. So if it is in a government setting, for example, government agencies and government operational areas must be able to support what the entire government is doing. When it comes to a company, the departments and the sections within a company should ensure they are moving towards the realization of the organizational vision. That is how the social systems theory can inform decisions at that level. Then principles, number five, principles and concepts should be designed so that they are broadly applicable. There should be no principles or concepts that are designed in an organization. If you are designing, say, a system within an organization, then that system should be strong enough and versatile enough to be able to be applied within the organization to achieve the greater goals of that particular organization. Then number six, every system is bounded by space and time. Whatever system that an organization has, whether it is an open system or a closed system, then that system is bounded by space and time. For example, you may have inputs by a particular time, processes must take place by a particular time, outputs must take place. So if you are receiving raw materials, the system of receiving raw materials should be conditioned to the operational cycle of maybe the operational machines, so that if the machines are, for example, uptaking, then that uptaking of raw materials should be done at a particular time. Processes must be, for example, started. Then you have the outputs in relation to the issue of space and time, so that the systems are well synchronized. Number seven, where the social systems theory can also be applied, social systems theory is consistent with the systems thinking, where the whole organization is supposed to think as one. So decision making processes must be synchronized so that the organization is able to operate from one point of command. So that is your social systems theory in relation to selected research and consultancy theories in our lesson that we have completed. And before we finalize the lesson, there is an assignment that you need to work on to be able to consolidate your knowledge in the area of theories as they are applied in relation to the social systems theory. And the assignment is examine the application of the social systems theory of the social systems theory social systems theory in management. So learner, your assignment for today's lesson, examine the application of the social systems theory in management. Thank you very much for being attentive in our lesson today. Welcome, learner, to our human resource management subject. And we are looking today at Friedrich Husband's two-factor theory, and we want to look at it in terms of the two aspects presented, two factors presented by Frederick Husband. Frederick Husband's two-factor theory is also referred to as motivation hygiene theory. Is also referred to as motivation hygiene theory. And in 1959, Frederick Husband proposed a two-factor theory, and according to Husband, there are some factors that result in satisfaction, while there are some other job factors that may prevent dissatisfaction. So according to Husband, the factors which enhance satisfaction should be maintained, and the factors which prevent dissatisfaction should be addressed to ensure that employees are motivated within a working environment. So Husband classified these job factors into two categories, and these two categories are hygiene factors. So you have the hygiene factors. You have the hygiene factors and motivational factors. Hygiene factors and motivational factors. And according to Husband, within a given environment, there could be some aspects built in the job itself. And these aspects that are built within the job itself, according to Husband, these are the satisfiers. And that is what Husband proposed, that managers have to be able to find out, organizations have to be able to find out what are these inbuilt factors within the job in relation to motivational factors that may enhance employee motivation, and they can be cultivated, and they can be put in place, and workers can be encouraged to be able to perform. So we want to look at the two factors. So we will start with the hygiene factors. Hygiene factors. These hygiene factors that were brought out by Husband, the hygiene factors are those that may, in the working environment, if they are not addressed, bring dissatisfaction within that particular setting. And Husband proposed that an organization has to address those hygiene factors. And what are some of the hygiene factors according to Husband? So according to Husband, the hygiene factors in an organization may be things like pay. And when it comes to pay, number one, pay. So this could be pay structures, and pay levels. Pay structures and pay levels. So what Husband was suggesting, if an organization wants its employees to perform, then they have to look at the hygiene factors in relation to pay. And in this case, you are looking at pay structures, you are looking at pay levels, you are looking at commensurate pay that should be given to employees depending on their performance. Then the next thing could be company policies, organizational policies, organizational policies and procedures. So an organization has to look at the organizational policies and procedures in terms of the guidelines that are available within the work environment that govern the relationship between workers, supervisors, managers, and how work is done in that particular work environment. So when that is now addressed, then there are also aspects of fringe benefits, benefits. So these ones are the extra perks that are provided to workers. For example, an employee in a given organization could be told if they are in an environment where parking is a challenge, that worker could be having a specific area where they park. So when they come to the work environment, they are able to find ready parking. They don't have to move up and down looking for parking. They could, for example, have good physical working conditions. So physical working conditions, physical working conditions. Physical working conditions should be looked at. So when it comes to the working environment, physical working environment. So this physical working environment may encompass things like maybe the machines, the tools, the equipment that employees are using. So here, machines, tools should be in good condition. Should be in good condition. So if an employee is working and the machine they are using, the machine the employee is using, and the equipment the employee is using is in good order, then that employee will enjoy even doing that particular work. So when you give employees equipment that are current, modern technology, even that worker will want to come and see how they can also be able to use those equipment. Then number 5, you have status. Employees should be recognized. And appreciated. Recognized and appreciated. So if you have designations or titles, then an employee will feel recognized, will feel appreciated, and this can also help in enhancing that employee's, for example, position. Then you also have interpersonal relations, interpersonal relations, interpersonal relations. So these should be cordial. Cordial relations should be cultivated within a given environment. Interpersonal relations, an organization should ensure that the way workers relate to each other, the way they also relate with managers and so on, the way subordinates and superiors relate, that should be cordial relations. Then you have the aspect of job security. Job security. So this could, for example, be given in terms of contracts, stable appointments, among others. So an organization should be able to provide job security, ensure there is work for employees, and that way employees can put in more effort. So this could be some of the hygiene factors which must be addressed within a given working environment to ensure that workers are able to be motivated to be able to work in terms of their areas of operation. Then you have now the second part. That one was hygiene factors. Then you have what we are calling motivational factors. Motivational factors. Motivational factors, or sometimes they were referred to as satisfiers. Motivational factors or satisfiers. So we have looked at the one side. These aspects are not inherent in the job. These are things which are around the job. So Hasberg recommended that in terms of the motivational factors, an organization has to look at the job itself now. The organization has to look at the job itself in terms of how that particular organization is able to work. So in terms of motivational factors, there is the first one, which is recognition. Recognition. So the employees have to be recognized in the organization. The organization, like now, if you have a general manager, you have a maybe plant manager, they have to be recognized within that particular organization, and they have also to be recognized in terms of their accomplishments. In terms of accomplishments, which must also be, which have to be appreciated. For example, an employee has invented some way of doing work that has to be recognized in a function, and if possible, that worker could also be given some reward in relation to that particular recognition, and that one will motivate that worker and other workers to be able to work effectively. And then number two, there is the aspect of sense of achievement. What happens, Lana, human nature is that if somebody does something and there is an element of achievement, right? For example, if an employee is given a target, okay? An employee is given a target, for example, you have got 1,000 acres of land that is arid, for instance, and you put there a team and they are supposed to be able to translate these 1,000 acres into farmland and be able to make harvests from there. So these kind of workers in that kind of a team, they will have a sense of achievement if they achieve this target of translating arid land that is 1,000 acres into arable land that can be able to sustain life and be able to feed people and so on. Then there is the element of growth and promotion. Growth and promotion. Growth and promotion. So an organization has to provide opportunities for advancement. Opportunities for advancement. If workers have achieved, if workers have performed, then these workers should be promoted, for example. So these ones could be, for example, promotion to higher grades. So that will make those employees who have been promoted to move to higher grades. It will make these employees to be able to work hard, and other employees will also want to work smart so that they can also grow in terms of their career expectation, as the case might be. And then it is important that employees within organizations are also made responsible. Responsibilities. So we are looking at motivational factors. So if you have a team, for example, if you have a team and you make them responsible for production, for example, responsible for production, so they will set targets, they will bring together their schedules, they will decide when they are supposed to maybe stop the machine and do overhaul, and when they have those responsibilities as a team, if they achieve or if they are challenged to be able to achieve challenging targets and so on, then that particular kind of a group can be able to operate, can be able to be motivated in terms of a team, in terms of the members and so on. Then there is the element of meaningful work. Meaningful work. So that work should be worthwhile. Whatever employees are doing should be worthwhile, something they can be proud of. For employees to be proud. Employees should be proud of what they are doing. If they are doing things that are making lives better, if they are doing things that are changing the environment, that are changing the society, they are, for example, producing products that are being used to save lives, They are making products which are used to feed people who are hungry, dress or clothe people, provide intervention measures and so on, assist humanity. So this meaningful work will make it worthwhile, and it is a motivational factor for employees, and it is one of the satisfiers that management has to make sure within a given work environment, employees are motivated. So having looked at now hygiene factors, we have also looked at motivational factors. What are some of the implications of two-factor theory? Implications of two-factor theory. Implications of two-factor theory. So we want learner to look at what are some of the implications of the two-factor theory. So one, managers and supervisors must create a conducive work environment for effective motivation. Two, employees should be involved in decision making. Number three, why this Frederick Herzberg's two-factor theory is critical. Jobs must be designed. To enhance employee motivation. So what you are saying, Lana, in this point is that if you look at the hygiene factors, these are factors which are outside the job. But if you look at the motivational factors, these ones are factors which are inherent within the job. Then progressive recognition should be made to employees, to encourage motivation. So you have a situation where employees have performed well, and it had been agreed that if you achieve, it is important that you are recognized. So the recognition should be made. And number five, organization should combine intrinsic and extrinsic rewards. Organizations should combine intrinsic and extrinsic rewards in their motivation. So what happens, it is not only the extrinsic factors, intrinsic and extrinsic factors are important. So organizations must seek to strike a balance in terms of how they may want to motivate their workers. And then it's also important, number six, job enrichment. Should be used to provide employees with vertical job loading factors.